You don't sound very libertarian. Based on our first meeting or first two interviews, I'd maybe wrongly made the assumption that all cypherpunks, or the history of the cypherpunks, were all probably pretty libertarian. And I've got into a lot of clashes, so many clashes with Bitcoiners because I'm not a libertarian. I mean, I almost agree with everything they say, but very clearly don't think it works. Or I think if you break down the structures of democracy, you end up either rebuilding it or building authoritarianism. And I know democracy can trend towards authoritarianism, but I don't think you can coordinate certainly 330 million people without some centralized structures. Now, some will say, well, with Bitcoin, you can. I think Bitcoin is just one tool.
So when I think about labels, so one of my favorite novels, which is got so much great stuff, I recently reread it again, is a Robert Heinlein novel, kind of classic cypherpunk, which is called Moon is the Harsh Mistress. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Nope, I'm going to write it down now.
Essentially, the moon was a penal colony, like Australia was many years ago, and all the kind of governments of the world start shipping all their criminals and all their undesirables to the moon to work on this prison colony. But over time, people are actually born free on the moon, but because they're born in a gravity well there, they can't ever return back, and they want their independence. So the same way, Australia at one point was a prison colony, and then it became a self-selected government. This kind of plays out and it's got so many great things. It has like economic lessons because, they literally try to finance their war against Earth using stolen money and using fiat money. There's an entire debate on how to form proper government. And because they throw out the warden, and they now are saying, how do we select a government? And so one of the heroes of the book, Professor La Paz, who's this kind of very learned guy, describes his politics as a rational anarchist. And when I was very young, I kind of loved that. And he describes it as a rational anarchist believes in personal and individual responsibility, does not believe that responsibility can largely be shared amongst people, because at the end of the day, it always comes down to someone making a choice, even if it's 4 people making a choice. And would prefer to have no laws and to have everyone just take care of themselves. But the rational part is you understand that system rarely works for everyone else. And so you're willing to accept the least amount of compromises within that goal. And so when they're forming the government, they actually talk about things like, how do you keep government honest? How do you keep government small? How do you reduce, because once you start down the road of taxation and you give people the right to pass laws that are, more often than not, people pass laws for what other people shouldn't do. How often does someone come into Congress and say, I'm very, very concerned with my desire to smoke cigarettes. Can you please make it illegal? No, it's, I'm concerned with your bad habit of smoking cigarettes, and I'm going to make it illegal for you. And that's just one example. So, one of the ideas or things that are discussed are like, can you get a law proposed by one majority, a third, right? Or sorry, 2/3, but have any law be able to be repealed by 1/3. Some of these things were designed or thought of in the Senate and the House and federal in their attempts, but that was almost 250 years ago. I think the closest government that's done a really detailed review on constitutional democracies recently has been New Zealand. And what they did for election of parties and starting to move away from a 2-party political system was really, really intelligent. Unfortunately, those things are very hard to update in the United States because you need to have a ratification amongst all the states to update the Constitution, or a large portion of them. But I believe that we all deserve better government. I believe that the freedom to move your money and to move your voice and to move across borders is essential in keeping governments honest. Because if a government can hold you geographically and hold you financially, then it's very easy for that government to ignore your voice. And so in those regards, I think monetary freedom is essential. Freedom of speech and cyberspace is essential to move us on the long road to what I hope is a more peaceful democratic society. But we are at a very small turning point because the technologies of AI, the technologies of media manipulation, the understanding that we're getting in psychology, and like we're literally taking stuff that mentalists and hypnotists used to learn, and we built an entire ad industry around it in being able to get inside people's insecurities, their wants, their desires, and screw with them. And that's just done by the advertising industry. Wait until we have AI software that is, able to have these rules and customize it. And I mean, the technologies of mass control didn't exist before. And I think that's why communism failed. That's why, a lot of the worst parts of socialist, tyrannical socialist governments fell.